this line of children visiting want to have access to. And for me, it was a question of, now that I'm here, now that I have this access, what am I going to do with it? And for me, it doesn't just stop at my own education or my own degree. It's taking the historical legacy of Harvard and what it represents and the type of power that it holds, and then translating that into my own work as an activist and a writer.
You often get called the voice of a generation, which I would contend with a generation this diverse and large, there can be no single voice of a generation. What do you think your generation gets right about advocacy, and what do they get wrong?
I love, as we call it, Gen Z, because they're relentless, and they're highly critical. For example, especially now in the age of social media, we're very good at catching false activism for what it is. For example, the word feminism has been commercialized to the point that it's on t-shirts, it's on pins, but the money that you spend for those types of objects in commercialism doesn't always go back to the cause. And I feel that Gen Z is very good at catching those types of false inserts of, activism into that type of sphere. Case in point, the Pepsi commercial.
You mean the one with Kendall Jenner?
With exactly the Pepsi commercial. Kendall Jenner somehow protest succeeds because she has a bottle of Pepsi. If only Martin Luther King had known, that's all he needed to do. And so that's a case in point where I think we are very adept at recognizing profound activism when it's there and when it's not. One thing that I think we could improve on is understanding historical context and legacy. For example, Gen Z, millennials, feminists, all love to use the word intersectionality. It is the buzzword.
The word of the moment.
The word of the moment. And this fascinates me because I will actually go to Google Trends data and look at when the use of intersectionality spikes. And it always happens, of course, during the Women's March. But the thing is, historically, the word intersectionality has been here since 1989 from Kimberly Crenshaw, an amazing scholar who first coined the term. But I can tell you a lot of the times if you're talking with not only Gen Z but other age groups about intersectionality, they might not be as aware of that type of history and what the word was used for originally. And I think it's important not just because I'm a nerd and I like history, but because if we're not on the same page of the words that we're using to build a movement, how then are we going to use those words to help the movement succeed? I love this speech by Abraham Lincoln where he basically says, by freedom, we do not all mean the same thing. By feminism, we do not all mean the same thing. And by intersectionality, we do not all mean the same thing.
I want you to read another poem.
Okay.
Will. This one is called We Rise.
This one I wrote the day that Dr. Ford gave her testimony. It's no longer fearing, because while there's a lot to lose, for once this we choose. There's a lot at stake, but making a difference always takes great courage, so we choose to encourage women who dare to stare fear square in its face. Somewhere, someplace, someone might have used violence to silence a woman's screams. But now it seems he can't quiet his own when the truth is shown, because when one woman stands, she is never alone. Change is achieved when we believe survivors, because lies can't survive their spirit and believers when they hear it. We've all heard the game of she said, he said, but today we came to let it be said that light will be shed when a country is led by survivors of all genders who engender not to keep truth a secret, but who have the courage to speak it. We'll respect her not just because we list her as a man's sister, daughter, niece, wife, but because she is simply someone, a life. We respect a woman's truth not because we know her and such, but because we owe her that much.
We talk a lot, especially because most of our guests are older than you are, about how Me Too has trickled down into the workplace, but I wonder what the conversation looks like on college campuses.
For so long, sex-based, gender-based violence has kind of been seen as mutually inclusive with the college experience, meaning that it's the danger of the employment as a student on that space. And with Me Too, I think we're seeing this ferocious and also justified critique that no, it should not be normally expected in my college experience that this amount of women will go and experience some type of sexual-based violence. That is unacceptable, and that is horrendous. Particularly at Harvard, there's been a couple of steps that have been taken to ensure that Title IX is being upheld. And I think a lot of that work happens with administrations, but also happens with students demanding more from the people in power at their educational institutions.
Do you feel like other people take you as seriously and your ideas as seriously as you take yourself?
Some people and some people no. For example, I think it's interesting because once you get a title like Youth Poet Laureate of the United States, you might think that an orb of, this golden aura surrounds you. People will respect you for your work and for what you do. It's not always the case, especially when I'm in rooms with a white man where, people ask me if I want to make it as a poet. I'm like, what do you mean make it? Am I not a poet right now? I've been told by white men in my classes that my writing is too confident, etc., etc. But
wait, stop. Too confident?
Too confident. That's what I said. And I leaned back and I'm like, this is a workshop on poetry, not on my character.
What do you believe that too confident is code for?
Too confident is code for I'm not comfortable for a black woman who's using her voice with a pen to be existing in the same classroom. That's what it was code for. But what I did is, this is a tip I have for any woman who's in that type of space. When something like that plops out of a man's mouth and he doesn't realize that it's trash, you just ask questions. You don't say anything. You don't call him out for it at first. I just said, what do you mean by it's too confident? And he goes, well, and keeps stuttering. And you just keep asking questions. And by 3, what do you mean by that? And he leans back and he goes, you know what? Never mind. What I said was kind of idiotic. And I was like, yeah, it was.
You have previously stated that you intend to run for president 2036.
Correct.
Still the plan?
Still the plan. I just thought if I start the campaign now, by the time we get there, a lot of the heavy lifting will have been done. So I'm thinking of like hashtags, which might be like hashtag Commander-in-Chief. I'm still working on them.
I wonder though, when you first said that, I think that people thought we'd be farther along in 2020 than we're finding ourselves. Do you think that gap will close between now and 2036 for you specifically as a woman of color?
I think the gap is already closing, and it's difficult to numericize it because until we have someone in the White House who identifies as woman, it will always, if you can't see it, you can't imagine it. So we're at this tipping point where we don't have someone to visualize and then project. But I can tell you we have a woman president coming soon. And I think once we reach that, it will be the tipping point. All of a sudden, we'll have girls around the country who will see an image that they can identify it, and that it will make the gap all the smaller.
Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
That was Amanda Gorman. I was just listening to her. She was the poet laureate last time we had one. I hope everybody who's watching this is not minding that I had that on. I just really was listening to it and curious about what she had to say. And I'm just working on my mural again. It's taken some time. It's actually going to take forever. It's going to take a long time to finish this. Because I don't want it to just be scrappy. Oops, there we go. How is everyone who is watching this video? I hope you're doing well. I'm pretty good. I woke up late. I'm a little out of breath, but I'm pretty good. I'm just out of breath because I get that way when I've been doing a lot. Breath. breathless. Okay. Huh. I'm gonna have to figure out what color the sky is. And it's gonna be really hard to reach up there. I don't know what I'm gonna do it with. Like a long handled brush. I don't really know how I'm gonna reach the highest point. Let's see here. My longest handled brush. This is probably my longest handled brush, but it's not a good brush. This is another long handle brush. Can I reach that high place? Let's see here. I can reach up to there. I'll be able to reach up to there. I'm going to have to stand on a chair eventually. I really don't like doing that. Let's see here. I'm looking at it in the camera to see what it's like. It's getting there, but it needs a lot more paint. Lordy, lordy, lordy. I'm going to try to put something else on we can listen to together. Good doggy. I think I'm allowed to play
People
that.
always say body fat equals calories in minus calories out, right? And that's always true. But that's not the way it always works, right? Because that assumes that calories can go in and out of the body fat, which is the storage, anytime it wants. But it can't, right? So you think about your fridge, right? Your fridge is a store of food. So you go to the grocery store, you buy food.
I'm listening to
you store some
Dr.
food in the
Mike.
fridge, and you eat some of it.
This is on
It's been a
Dr.
long
Mike.
on that.
Today we're joined by Dr. Jason Fung, the leading nephrologist and author of the best-selling book, The Obesity Code. Dr. Fung has taken the social media world by storm, igniting passionate discussion surrounding calories and their value when it comes to weight loss. His belief is that insulin and other hormones are more impactful than calories when it comes to weight management. Today, I wanted to directly discuss some of these hotly contested statements and find some common ground in this highly complex and often heated nutrition space. Turns out, it's way more complicated than I thought. So for the very first time, I'm trying a new truth-seeking approach where upon a significant point of disagreement during the conversation, you will hear this sound. And that is to signal to you that there's a footnote in the description of this video leading to a separate short video clearing up the controversy with sources. Get ready for a deep dive on the science of nutrition, weight loss, and reversing chronic disease. Let's get started. Dr. Fung, I'm really excited to talk with you on a topic that very much needs more attention, the topic of obesity. As you've said in previous conversations, I mean, we've had guests talking about it. We're in a crisis state where 60, maybe now 70% overweight or obese as a nation here, at least in the United States. I'm assuming similar figures in Canada, or
A little less, but
a little bit less,
yes.
but also climbing,
Also very high.
and truly a worldwide issue, right? More pandemic than epidemic at this point. I've heard your very strong interest in the topic, but you're a nephrologist, which is a kidney specialist and not necessarily the specialty that usually talks about obesity. How did you find that to be a topic that you were so passionate about?
Yeah, it sort of followed from type 2 diabetes. So what happened, from 1977 is that obesity went up. And about 10 years later, 12 years later, what you saw is a huge epidemic of type 2 diabetes, which is very closely related diseases. And so once you have the type 2
Bring out a
diabetes,
white.
kidney disease, somewhere around 10 or 15 years into the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. So as you get, 1977, you start to see this uptick in obesity. By 1990, you see uptick in type 2 diabetes. By 2000, 2002, when I'm getting out of practice, now you're starting to see diabetic nephropathy, like all the diseases. And it's by far and away the biggest cause of kidney disease. So the two big ones really is type 2 diabetes and hypertension. So both of them are related in some way because they're very much metabolic diseases. They're related to weight and so on. So
It's a lifestyle.
And to lifestyle, exactly. And the point was that around 2008, 2009, as a medical profession, we had been thinking about this completely the wrong way. So when people develop their type 2 diabetes, we give them medications such as insulin, they gain weight. But we didn't actually change the course of the disease. And that's in 2008, 2009, several very large trials, the Accord trial, the Advance trial, and the VADT came out, all of it showed that if you control the sugars, the blood sugars, by giving lots of insulin, then you actually don't change the course of the organ damage. So you're not slowing down the kidney disease or heart disease or mortality in any significant way. And so it really started.
Wait, are you saying by controlling sugar levels, blood sugar levels, you weren't controlling mortality and morbidity rates?
Yeah. So we all learned, like I learned, so I went to school in medical school in the 1990s. So we all thought that the sugar in the blood was what's causing all the problems. The sugar in the blood causes glycation end products, which would cause atherosclerosis, which would cause heart disease, kidney disease, and the rest of it. So the idea was we should give people lots of insulin, get their blood sugars down. And so that was the trial, a big NIH trial, multi-center, randomized control trial, 3 different ones actually. And what they did was they looked at giving people lots of drugs to get their A1Cs down, which is a measure of the blood glucose. And sure enough, you could drop their A1C from about 8 to about 7, 6.5, something like that. But the thing was that that's not what they were interested in. We knew we could get that blood sugar down. What we wanted to know was whether we could slow down the heart disease or the kidney disease or the total deaths. Turns out it wasn't effective at all. So if your sugars were quite high and you didn't treat it, it was basically the same as if you did treat it, which was a huge, shocking sort of thing. So this was the Accord study. In fact, those who got the insulin and the control did worse. They died at a higher rate, which was completely opposite from what we thought the result of the trial was. The problem was that people didn't change their practice after that. But I thought it was actually very striking because it wasn't.
I'm gonna take another break. See you guys later. Thank you for watching.
That showed the same